Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chapter Select, a seasonal retrospective podcast where we bounce back and forth between a series exploring its evolution, design, and legacy. For this season, we are covering the Metroid Prime franchise. My name is Max Roberts, and I am joined, as always, by Logan Moore. Hi, Logan.
Happy 2024, Max. It's time to play every Metroidvania game in the world.
Well, not every Metroidvania game. That would be
pretty close to some degree.
Yeah, every
namesake Metroidvania,
including the next episode this season, the Hot Federation Force. So,
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sure that's the whole reason why we did this year of Metroidvania, was to play Federation Force and nothing else. Is that game even a Metroidvania? This is my question. I know nothing about Federation Force, and we have not played the game yet at the time.
It's a co-op shooter, I think.
So is it just like a linear corridor shooter, or is it a Metroidvania
I think it's
game?
level-based. I don't know. I know there's a
soccer
minigame equivalent.
I know that because I've seen the demo for that at the Nintendo Treehouse or whatever it was back in the day.
Yeah.
When people were raging at Nintendo for making that game. That game is like $90 complete in box now, which is crazy.
So bad.
Which is why when I found a loose copy for $25, I was like, I gotta jump on it. So
yeah.
Did you own that game already? We're talking about Federation Force the whole time now.
I did not own Federation Force beforehand, so I'm out here in the lurch. It's pretty nutty. I mean, that and Prime Pinball. But we're really here to talk about Metroid Prime, which kicked off the entire Prime sub-series in the Metroid franchise.
And this is what we're talking about here today. Episode 1 is all about Metroid Prime. Max, let's go through the rundown here for this game. Metroid Prime was developed by Retro Studios. It originally released on the Nintendo GameCube on November 18th, 2002. Max and I played the remastered version, which released on Nintendo Switch earlier, I guess this year, the year we're recording this. So I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain.
Last year.
Last year. It released on February 8th, 2023. The game director was Mark Pacini. The producers were Shigeru Miyamoto, Kensuke Tanabe, Kenji Miki, Akira Otani, and Michael Mann. Michael Mann, isn't that a famous actor or something?
Maybe, perhaps. I don't know.
And then the music was done by Kenji Yamamoto and Kouichi Kyuma. The Metacritic score for this game on GameCube was a staggering 97 out of 100. I believe this is the highest rated GameCube game in history. You could look that up pretty quickly here, but I'm like 95% certain that's the case. I don't know what else would be higher. The 97 is absurd. The Switch remaster here had a 94 out of 100 as well. So this game is still one of the most acclaimed Nintendo games ever. Actually, that's kind of hard to say because I feel like all Mario and all Zelda games are very, very critically acclaimed. Zelda particularly.
It is the highest rated GameCube game.
What else is up there on that list?
So tied for second is one, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, one, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, and one, Resident Evil 4.
Okay.
So, and then fifth is The Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition collection, Madden 2004 or 2003. Beautiful Joe is number 7, Soul Calibur is number 8, Smash is 9, and Sunshine is 10. So Metroid Prime 2 Echoes is 12. So that's kind of where.
So this is number 1. And I know
the GameCube Go.
Well, I was gonna say the Switch version too. It probably isn't anymore, but I know this is weird because we're recording in 2023 here. But I know the Switch version was like the highest rated game of the year, I think, up until Baldur's Gate 3 releasing.
Really?
Which was like 8 or 9 months into the year. This was the highest rated game. Or maybe, until Zelda released.
Okay.
And then, because I forgot Zelda came out in 2023 as well. So Tears of the Kingdom,
but
Baldur's
we both
Gate.
haven't played Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's number 3 currently as of this recording, behind Baldur's Gate and Zelda, which are both tied at 96. So I guess Zelda maybe has more reviews, and that's why it's ahead.
Yeah.
The Witcher 3 is also on this list, so that just tells you where 2023 is at of this as of this recording.
It's always weird when remasters or new ports of things come out.
I remember The Last of Us when that happened on PS4. They were like, "Can it be Game of the Year 2 years in a row?" I was like, "That's a little stupid."
Yeah. So, how do you want to start here with this first episode talking about this game? Because obviously, this is going to set things up. This, in a lot of ways, I am viewing this, Max, as your season. You are the Metroid expert. Once again, we're kind of going back to how we were with our Fast and Furious season, where I am the Metroid novice here. I have not played literally any of these games that we are going to play throughout. Actually, that's a lie. I've played Metroid Prime 3, which is the one I know people say is the worst one. So I have played Metroid Prime 3, but I've not played anything else this season. So I am not a seasoned veteran of Metroid. And I guess just to continue talking here, I rented Metroid Prime 1 here from Blockbuster once, maybe when I was a kid, and I don't think I got even through that opening area with Ridley, and then you run away. I don't even think I got.
You didn't get off the space frigate?
I don't think so.
The first 10 minutes?
I dabbled with it, and then I was like, and then I just like put it down, and then like probably didn't play it, and then my parents were like, "We got to take it back to the store." So that's my history with this game. That's my history with this game. Rentals used to be like $2 or $3. It was kind of just fair.
Like, but you'd only get one at a time. It's back in the day, so
you could only get one at a time. Really? Was that a rule? Maybe that was a thing, because I feel like Blockbuster may have made a big promotion at some point that is like, now you can get 5 things at a time or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't remember.
I
feel like I will say I feel like it's against their business model though for them to limit you to things you could rent.
Yeah, that's probably not the case. It's probably more my parents saying you can only rent one game.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Because what are you going to get up to the counter and be like, "Hi, I would like to rent 10 games at a time," where they're going to be like, "Sorry, put those back on the shelf." I mean, they're going to take your money regardless.
Yeah, they'll take it. And they'll hope you don't return them on time so they can charge you late fees.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's my history with this, and that's kind of my history at large with
Prime
Metroid.
Well, one thing that we share with Metroid is we both played Super Metroid on our first podcast together for I don't even remember what we called that section.
Millennial Gaming Speak, and it was
the podcast was Millennial Gaming Speak, but
Play and Report.
Play and Report. That's right. And one of the games that we did was Super Metroid, and I didn't beat it at the time. And then another one, Season 8 for us, Castlevania, we both did Symphony of the Night, and I only got, I think, I got to the Inverted Castle and fought Shaft up there, so I didn't fully beat the game, so that was another thing. I've since done so for both games. But, yeah, so we Super Metroid, and then you haven't played Dread yet.
I have not played Dread. I've played Samus Returns.
On the 3DS,
strangely.
Okay.
And I think that's it though.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I've never played original or the Game Boy ones.
There's only one. Well, Game Boy Advance. Yes, I was gonna say.
Yeah, the Game Boy Advance games.
There's only one on Game Boy.
And then yeah, that's it. Because I've never played Dread yet either. But I want to play Dread. I might play Dread at some point as we go through this season.
Yeah, Dread's
just while we're in the zone.
In the Metroidvania zone. So for me, my overall history with Prime in general, the franchise, is pretty interesting and scattered, I think. I believe my copy of Metroid Prime, I think, was a neighbor kid's, and they let me borrow it, and I think I never returned it.
I think I have a couple of games like that in my collection, too, where I'm like, I don't remember obtaining this.
Yeah. I know for sure Luigi's Mansion was another kid's. It's just one of these kid things. Like, it just gets lost in the shuffle, and you never return it, and they never ask for it.
Yeah, you just don't even think about it sometimes, too.
But I do know Luigi's Mansion was a kid's, and I think this copy of Prime was theirs as well. And what's not interesting, because I think it's a fairly common version of the game, is mine was a 2-disc version, with the second disc being the Metroid Prime 2.
I've seen this. I've seen this when I poke around on Mercari and I look to buy this game, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
So it came with this demo disc for the second game. So I picked up Prime sometime after 2004, I believe, and I liked the demo disc, and I obviously enjoyed playing the game. And then later with Prime Echoes, I had to get my grandma's partner. He bought Echoes for me at a GameStop. I remember that. And then I got the trilogy on Wii, which is how I got a hold of Corruption and the other stuff. I remember getting that at GameStop. And then Hunters, I was obsessed with Hunters on the DS. I think a big part of that was the first Hunt demo cart that came with my DS. So I've 100% in Hunters and all that jazz, and I've never touched Federation Force. So when they announced Metroid Prime 4, I was very excited.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, everyone's sorry. It's one of those moments you see it, you saw the stars, and you hear the music, and immediately you knew.
I just need to say this for posterity's sake. It'd be very funny if Nintendo has re-revealed that game by the time this episode is live.
I hope that's the case. I hope so.
There's a chance. I mean, we've got Game Awards coming up, and then we don't know when this episode's posting yet, but Nintendo tends to do like a February Direct. So like,
and if they truly are doing a new console next year, they may. Because I remember the Switch was in January.
Everything we're saying here is probably people are probably like, "What are you talking about, you two idiots?"
We're
recording this in October 2023 to just get that out there.
This is the record. And so Prime itself, I remember playing it, exploring this world, dabbling with it. But here's the confession: I've never beaten it. Meta Ridley I couldn't beat Meta Ridley. And my save,
I found Meta Ridley kind of easy
for a 10-year-old.
Compared to some of the other bosses,
a 10-year-old, I was not having a good time with Meta Ridley.
At least you got there. That's pretty impressive, to be honest, for a kid.
I have my save. I've actually been contemplating like maybe I should go back to the save and beat the game once and for all.
So wait, hold on. What? Did you never know why the game was called Metroid Prime then?
So here's the thing. So not at the time, but since
because I didn't know that until I played. I was like, oh, okay, there we go. They said the thing.
So since then, I have learned that the final boss is Metroid Prime, but I have never seen the end of this game until beating it for Remastered. I've never seen it in a speed run at a GDQ or anything. I've never watched a Let's Play. So I had no idea, truly no idea what happens after beating Meta Ridley.
Well, now I want to talk about the ending of the game with you. Were you surprised when she took her helmet off?
What?
Yeah. She has her helmet off at the end of the game.
When?
I must have done something that you didn't. Maybe that must be.
Maybe I missed it because I was typing something. I
mean, it's like the final cutscene. She's standing on her ship and she takes her helmet off.
I'll have to double back. Maybe I wasn't paying attention.
Oh. That might be like an unlockable thing, like kind of how I know the original game. If you beat it in a certain amount of time, then you would get to the end of the game and you find out Samus is actually a girl and she'd be wearing like a bikini or her underwear, basically. So maybe it's like a similar thing here. Did you get all the energy cells? I'm trying to think of specific things I did in this.
I did get all the energy things.
That's like the only thing I can think of then that I like fully collected. I don't know.
We'll have to look into it.
Maybe you just totally whiffed on it.
I may not have been paying attention. I have the footage. I can pull it up.
We can pull up the footage then.
It is so yeah. I never have seen the end of this game. So I actually, when facing Meta Ridley the other day, I was a little nervous and actually got down to my final health box, and he was a sliver, and I was like, if I lose this, I'm gonna flip out right now. Like it's not gonna go well for me.
That's how it was when we played Thousand Year Door. When I got to the final boss in that, the corrupted Peach or whatever. I had never beaten that as a kid, and so then when we played it, I was like, oh no, I'm really intimidated because my 10-year-old self couldn't defeat this boss. I hope my 27-year-old version of myself can. So
yeah. I just looked at my footage. She did not take her helmet off. So
what did I do?
What was your clear percentage? Do you remember? Did you write it down? I had 66%.
I was higher than that. I mean, we could definitely look it up here.
If you have fewer than 75% of the item, the screen cuts to black just as Samus removes her helmet. So 75 to 99%, You get her face, and then she
Okay, so I
enters.
definitely had 75 to 99%. That's of the scan data or of the collectibles?
I just said data. So my
Okay.
overall completion percentage was 66%. So
Okay, yeah, I was definitely higher than that. I was scanning like crazy. I was collecting everything I could find. I was also
yeah.
kind of following a guide, not fully for my whole playthrough, but that guide helped shine the light on some things I probably otherwise would have missed. So, I mean, I assume you're seeing Samus without the helmet out now.
Yeah, I
If
saw the
you
picture.
Google this.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's my history though with Prime.
I was gonna
Is
say we've done a lot of talking here, but I don't think we have talked about what either of us actually think about the game. Which we have not, like, we've talked about this game before recording, but I've been very dodgy with what I think about it.
well, you made some comments that make me
I made
think
some comments.
think you're actually maybe more negative than I would have anticipated. But fill me in.
I think that this is a very, very good game, but it
Okay, I'll take it.
overstays its welcome.
Interesting. Because
If this game was like 2 or 3 hours shorter, I feel like it would be far superior, to be honest with you. I feel like
what was your final play time?
like 11 hours, I want to say.
Really?
11,
Okay,
11 and a
wow.
half, 12.
I
What was
was
yours?
I'm at 12 hours 55 minutes, so 13 hours. I was 13 hours.
Yeah, that's.
But you're saying subtract 2 hours from 11, so you're saying like a 9.
I think this
so
should be
that's
like a
interesting.
good like 8 to 10 hour experience. The reason I say that is because the first half or more of this game, I was like thoroughly loving it. Like all my notes are very positive. Like this is an absolutely perfect adaptation of a Metroidvania game to 3D. The vibes are immaculate. I feel like I'm getting lost in this world. The soundtrack's amazing. Blah 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 blah. But like the final hours of the game, especially when you start trying to find all the different, is it the Chozo? Is it the artifacts?
Artifacts, yeah.
Yeah, when you start trying to find the artifacts, that involves a lot of backtracking, and you're not really exploring any more of the world at that point because you've kind of discovered everything there is to discover, and you're instead just trying to find like little puzzles in the environment that you haven't either had access to or you haven't just noticed, I guess, because you haven't had all the tools in your disposal. So the final hours of this game get very, very backtrack heavy, and it started to lose me late, like hard. Like I still think all the environments are great and the music's great and stuff like that, but like I guess I could only like go through some of those environments so many times before I was like, because I knew where I had to get to. Like that was the thing
And
that
you
was
have
frustrating.
to walk there. You can't
Yes.
fast travel. You can't teleport.
There's nothing like that, which I think is good, and that's how Metroidvania games should be. But I know where I need to get to. I know the part of the map I need to be on, and I'm just trying to figure out like what the fastest route is to get there. And a lot of times there isn't a super quick route. Like you have to
go through a couple of levels to get to that place.
Yeah, and that was what really annoyed me the most. And then that was also why I started using a guide, was because I was trying to create like an ideal route to go get all the artifacts. Like, okay, if I'm going to have to go through this area, like is there a Chozo artifact that I haven't gotten in this part of the map that I'm going to be going through anyway that I should just like keep an eye out for and go get. So I definitely used a guide to help just that but I did that for my own sanity to some degree because it was really starting to lose me. But everything before that I thought was really, really fantastic. I just think that last fourth of the game or so really drags quite heavily, if I'm being honest.
It does really involve backtracking because you have to go back to deposit the first round of artifacts before you can get the final 3. That is the biggest design misstep.
Yes, that was insane to me because you're already doing enough backtracking as it is, going back to all these different environments and stuff. But when you can't even scan all of the artifact like details or descriptors that tell you where you need to be going, because the thing that's crazy is some of them end up being very close to one another. And then you go back and you deposit it and it's like, oh, by the way, there's another one right back there where you just were. It's like, dude, are you serious? Like You could have just got them both. They were very close to each other. And that, yes, I'm very glad you mentioned that, because that was something that drove me up a wall even more so, was that.
And I think the other thing, the difference between you and me this time around, is I knew you needed the artifacts to beat the game. So from the very beginning, I was like,
I messaged
okay,
you
let's
about
look for
halfway.
this and this and this.
I messaged you at some point, and I was like, "Do you need these, or is this just like for the heck of it?" And you're like, "Nope, you need those."
And I hesitated. I was like, "Do I let him get to the end of the game and realize he was supposed to get all of those?" And I was like, he would get really mad if I didn't tell him. So yeah, that I knew that. So I was, as I'm in the environment, I'm like, all right. Here, and here. Can I get to that gnome? No. What do I need to get that? And then as soon as I would get that item, I'd remember, oh, let's go get it. We're here. Let's get it. Let's grab it. And so I was already, the only thing was, once I got the plasma beam, which is kind of the final real item, and that and the X-ray visor kind of obstructing everything, I was like, okay, I only needed the final 3, And so then it was just, and 2 of them are super quick and easy to get, those final 2. One of them is in that tower in Magmar Caverns, or Magmore, and then Phendrana.
One of them you got to melt the one of them you got to melt the ice, and then the other one's the one with the hand thing that throws you.
Yeah, it's so, like, they're not hard, they're not tough challenge ones to get, but it is they just gate the information for them off. I am curious if you need the clue to even get it, because like you just shoot the missiles at the rock and probably blow it up.
You don't need the clues.
Okay, so that makes
again cheating.
Second playthrough.
I followed a guide, and so
okay.
One of them I had to go back to unlock or whatever, or to unlock those other descriptors, and I was like, dude, I'm just gonna look at a guide and see if there's some nearby, and there were. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, glad I didn't spend, because like you said, it'd be one thing if there was like a fast travel point that you could go to, like right by the Chozo area where but and I get that that's against the kind of purpose of these games, and I like that there's not fast travel in this game, but also I wish there was fast travel in this game. Like, it's a double-edged sword, because I really like that there isn't, but it does artificially inflate the length of the game for certain.
That is frustrating. I absolutely give you that, but I didn't mind being in the world, especially toward the end. You're just so powerful that you can just run through environment. You don't have to kill everyone. You've got the grapple hook. You can zip over the lava now. So to me at least, I would pause. I'd look at the map. I'd go, I need to go here, here, here to get to this place, and then I'm just like flow through the world and get there. So I didn't mind it. But I do see that, especially if it's just like the doubling back, not just in natural backtracking, but if it is your first time, you're light and you're not playing with a guide, you're like, you gotta go get the clues, and then you gotta go back out into the world. I think one of them is in the mines, is one of those last ones, so it's like, you've got to go in, I think, the worst, definitely the longest, like largest space in the game, down to the bottom to go get one of them. And that wasn't fun from a mechanical perspective, but I like being in the world.
How do you feel like this game is stitched together? Because we're talking a lot about how like you're running through it and flowing through it, and all the different. How many areas are there? 4 or 5, I think.
There are 5.
So
there's the overworld, Tallon IV, like the
Tallon
jungle,
overworld,
Chozo ruins, Magmore Caverns, Phendrana drifts, in the face on mines.
Yeah, and so they're all pretty interconnected with one another, but they are interconnected in different ways. And I liked learning how they were all stitched together. Like, oh, this elevator spit me out to this portion of Tallon Overworld, and I haven't been here yet, and I didn't know this was here. And okay, cool. And so I liked learning that. But I feel like it's also a little complicated it's complicated, I'll say it like this, to map it all out in my brain in this way. And maybe this is like the adaptation of, playing a Metroidvania game in 3D, which is what this game is doing. It's easier to kind of keep everything mapped out in my own brain while I play when it's just a flat, grid or
I need
whatever.
to go left and up
Yes.
instead of I need to go down this hallway, take a left in this room, go down this elevator, and yeah.
And I mentioned that to you. I think that was one of the few things I mentioned to you early when I started playing. I was like, I feel really lost. Like, and you're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just feel like confused, like where I'm at all times. And I wrote down like, I feel constantly lost and like I'm going the wrong way, but I also love that. Like there is an aspect of like not knowing where I'm going or like getting kind of twisted around in this world that I did love because it was scratching that exploration itch. And another game, I think there's even a Game Maker's Toolkit video about this potentially, about how there are similarities between this game and Dark Souls, actually. And that's kind of the same sort of vibe that I was getting from this at the time. All of Dark Souls 1 is so interconnected in this same sort of way. And I think it's the first person nature of Metroid Prime that had me like confused at times because I don't know. It's just a different perspective for these types of games and how you're engaging with the environment around you. And I don't know. So I didn't know if the same was true for you because I know you've played this game before. I didn't know if you kind of knew where everything was at. And
yeah, I remember it's. I think this world is one that you don't forget, like the environments, just the space of it. Now, I didn't remember the exact flow of everything, like, oh, this hallway goes here and that. But in my mind, it was so etched that you land in the jungle and you're in this like waterfall-y area. And then you go to the ruins and you're exploring this. And then you go to the lava and then you get the sweet relief of Fentrana. And so that whole, I did forget about the mines. My brain wiped the mines out of existence.
Yeah, because I said something about like Samus yearns for the mines. I'm going there, and you're like, "What?"
Well, I had been there. I had been there at that point, I believe.
Oh, had you? Okay.
Because you played really fast, but I was down in the mine. I actually had just gotten to the mines, I think, beforehand. So it's
okay.
So I did forget completely about the mines, and then when I realized how long and deep the mines go, I was like, "Oh no!"
Yeah, dude, the mines definitely the worst area. Definitely the worst.
The threshing point. This is where they weed people out.
And
that
then it
first
gets
time
worse.
down.
That first time down, but dude, the second time down is terrible too because there's freaking Metroids everywhere, and I hate Metroids. Drive me nuts.
The Metroids are. I think the Metroids are easier in this game. The base and the baby Metroids. The fission Metroids are terrible.
Oh,
the ones that split. Oh
no,
I don't like them. I do not like the beam, like because then you gotta switch your beams, and it's like a whole thing. I do not like fission.
Switching the beams is like I was thinking of this while playing. I was like, there's got to be like a better way to swap between.
Did you check the settings?
No, is there alternate options?
Yeah, there is. I was thinking the same thing. So on the GameCube, it's easy. It's the C stick, so you just flick it.
That's great.
It's perfect. But the remaster given us dual stick aiming controls, which is better, significantly better. So you can't have that. So you had to hold down the X button and use the D-pad.
Use the D-pad.
There is a setting in settings to alternate that. So the visors, you hold the X button, use the D-pad, and you can. And I changed that. I changed it late in the game, and while there was a little bit of brain mix-up, it is so
because you're like
much
hardly
better.
ever changing the visors, but you are changing your guns
constantly.
You're changing your blaster substantially more than the visors, at least.
Yeah, it was one of my notes. I was like, there's gotta be a way to switch this, and then I checked later in the game, and I was
that's definitely that's definitely a stupid gamer moment on my part. Like, oh, they should change this, and then I don't even go look at the options menu. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's not the first time I've done that. I've actually done that far too many times. But anyway,
yeah, it was a sweet relief to get that, and it really, I mean, kind of. Let's talk about the controls a little bit, because this is a game that has a lot of options. I'm not just meaning in the settings menu, because the history of this game is It's a GameCube first person adventure game is what they advertised it as. Not a first person shooter, but a first person adventure game. And the GameCube controller, as much as I love it and I conveniently have one on my desk, I think it's the best controller ever. It is not great for an FPS game. The C-stick is just not right for it. So they create the lock-on. They use the lock-on system basically for Ocarina of Time, and it makes it totally playable on GameCube. And then they port it to the Wii in Japan, and eventually here in the States with the trilogy, with motion controls, which are transformative from the GameCube controller. You were able to move around and aim independently.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we go. We finally get proper dual stick analog controls.
It only took 21 years.
But you can switch it to those other two options. You can even use a GameCube controller in Prime Remastered and have the controls mirrored. I think that's really interesting, and I kind of wish for this episode I had dabbled with the other modes just to reacquaint myself, really. But I do plan on playing Echoes on the GameCube, and then I'm going to play Corruption, obviously, on the Wii. So that way I have all three samplings by the time we're done with this season, as I've played all three major formats, controls.
And then
but I think
Metroid Prime 4 on the Switch too.
Yeah, with Mind Controller or whatever. But
yeah, that's their new tech.
How did you feel, besides switching beams, like how do you feel about how the game controlled and felt? Because it's not like a shooter. You are shooting a lot, but I'm just curious kind of how you felt about the feel of the game.
Yeah, I definitely had problems on this front too, mainly with the movement. I think Samus feels very stiff. Like I'm talking like with the platforming sections in particular, and the like the grappling hook and stuff like that. Like that stuff feels
grappling hook
does not feel good. All of the platforming in this game is not great. And once you get the double jump, that's a little bit improved, but like she still feels like she feels like she's like T-posing and jumping like throughout the environments or something like that. Like and that's just the old nature of this game, and that's what I chalk it up to, and that's kind of that. Otherwise, as far as like shooting controls and stuff go, like I felt like it was generally pretty fine. The lock-on feature is great. Like I don't think this game could be played, as like a Call of Duty style game where you have to aim at every enemy you're fighting. Like being able to lock on to enemies is vital, and like I feel like that's highly needed and great. Everything with the shooting and stuff like that I felt like was generally pretty good. Obviously I had problems with some of the controls, and clearly I could have fixed those myself. But I think the gameplay has held up generally quite well here. And there's also the thing I'll say about the gameplay too is that at least with some of the areas, and especially once you start to get all of the different weapons and unlockables, is that there's a lot of different methods that you can use to take down certain bosses and to take down certain enemies and stuff like that. Things that I really didn't realize until later on. Like I was like, oh, I could use this weapon and it interacts in this way. And I thought that was like the thing that's coming to mind. What is the final pirate boss you fight? Meta Ridley, I guess.
The Omega.
Is it Omega Pirate? The Omega Pirate, yeah. Like if you go down there, you have to shoot. There's 4 weak spots that the Omega Pirate has, but it's also something that can like suck up your blaster attacks. Yeah. So you can go drop a power bomb right next to it, and it blows them up right away. Like one of the.
Oh.
And so if you roll up into a morph ball and you go up and you drop one of the power bombs that you have right there, it'll nuke those parts of his body right away, and then that puts him into the zone where you can actually deal damage to him.
Should have thought.
And that's something that I learned just kind of by accident. But then once I did, I was like, dude, that's awesome that you can do that. And that's what I'm saying is like there's little things like that I think you can kind of discover throughout the game, with how certain weapons and certain unlockable abilities that you have that you unlock, and how they might interact with certain enemies. So I think the combat's all generally pretty good. The jumping is just the main thing that I had a problem with, honestly, and just the jumping in the movement, like the strafing doesn't feel great either. That like they're like there's a dodge blast thing you can do. Like it all just feels so like there's like no like animation to it. And I get that it's a first person game and you're not looking at Samus, but like it's so just rigid feeling, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah.
I didn't care for the strafe this time around. I found myself, when I wanted to strafe, I'd jump, and when I wanted to jump, I'd strafe, and so that led to me getting hit quite a bit.
I found that to be very inconsistent as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't too keen on that this time around, and I felt like the grapple hook wasn't as fluid as I remember it, and that might be a corruption thing. Maybe it's smoother in corruption with the Wii remote and stuff, but I was like, I should be like flying off of this. It took me a little bit to get the feel of the grapple hook this time around, but oh my gosh. They bait you with that sucker, man. You see those grapple points throughout so long in the game, and you
Dude,
get it.
oh my gosh,
I'm like, I just want the grapple beam.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I do enjoy the combat, and I think it feels really good. There is something about the beam switching in particular that is satisfying. Besides the fission Metroids, where you have to use two beams at once, and Metroids are chasing you, it's very stressful. But the rest of it I really enjoy. I remember specifically the ice monsters, whatever they were called. Those have always stuck with me, where you have to get behind them, shatter the ice, and then damage the internal organs on the inside. So I remember them. The Chozo Ghost. They suck.
Why do they keep coming back? Like, if you even leave the room and come back in, it's like, we're back now. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, so. I didn't. They're rough. But the beams, I love how different they all feel, and they each have their own special, unique properties that I really enjoy. Especially when you get their missile power up equivalent of like a flamethrower or a charged ice shot or the electricity like beam and stuff. So I like the beams a lot. Did you have a favorite beam? Were you partial?
I like the plasma beam? Is that the last one you unlock?
Yeah, plasma's the best.
That's the best one. Yeah, I think the plasma one. Honestly, I like the original one a lot too. I like that you can fire it so fast, but it's just so dang weak. Like you get to the late game, it's like, dude, like this is not viable any longer. Really, I feel like they really kind of force you to index into the plasma beam, which is fine. It's kind of like the late game unlockable, and you feel more powerful that way. But that would be my only sort of complaint, is that the original beam that you get, what is it even called? Just her arm cannon? I don't know.
Yeah, arm cannon.
Yeah, just her standard arm cannon just does not feel great by the end of the game, because it's just dealing such little damage. And I get that. I know the final boss, they make you cycle through all of them, which is a cool fight. And I feel like that's something that they had kept sort of introducing throughout the game, was the idea of switching between beams to kill different types of enemies. I know there's a bunch of different pirates, especially down in the mines, that can only take damage unless you use a certain unless you use one of the certain beams. So in that sense, maybe the final Metroid Prime fight itself is not all that original, but I still liked it overall. Also, I will say this: I did not know that the ice beam was in the game, and I know that's like a huge thing in the original Metroid, if I am not mistaken. And so when I saw it in this, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like,
and then that's when you kind of roughly meet Metroids, is also when you get that.
Yes,
it's good. I always felt prepared for that.
The standard one is called the power beam.
Power beam. Yeah, the beams are great. The other kind of staple, the morph ball. What do you think about that? First person to third person.
The morph ball is really cool. I like how it looks a lot in this game. That is the one thing that I do think controls pretty well. It's very sensitive, but there is a certain level of control that I do feel like I had over it at pretty much all times. I think the upgrades for it are cool too. The boost, and then the different variants of the bombs. I do have some issues with the power bombs, which we can talk about, mainly just that being on and like ammo or a consumable that you can run out of, which was frustrating.
Yeah.
But other than that, I will say the funny thing with the morph ball, it took me about halfway into my playthrough to realize you could jump.
With the bombs?
No, to just jump, period.
You can just jump?
You
With the
yeah.
B button?
With one of the buttons. I don't know what it is. I
didn't even try that.
It's X. You can just jump with it. And so a lot of the puzzles around the world. So you probably did the same thing as me, where you were using the bombs to get up on any higher ledges, and no, you can just jump. And so a lot of those puzzles where it's like they're tucking away energy cells or whatever, and like in very high areas, you can do your initial bounce as just a jump rather than the bomb.
Oh.
So you don't have to time it in such an annoying manner, which is what I assume you and I both did.
Yep, we just were bomb jumping. Oh, that's funny.
I mean, they don't really tell you. They're just kind of like, here's the morph ball. You can roll around now. Have fun. But
Very
yes,
cool.
there is actual just a bounce you can do with it.
Cool.
So
nice. Good to know. Well, it'll help going forward, for the next few games that we're going to be playing. So that will help. The morph ball was one of the toughest things for them to develop. It actually was so important to the game that Miyamoto said, if you can't do the morph ball, just don't make the game. So apparently that was one of the hardest things to implement. I think it's one of the most immersive. It's one of the most immersive qualities of the game, I think, because you're pulled out into this third-person perspective, but then you're pulled right back into Samus's visor, and it really makes the game just feel really cohesive. It's one of those world-building, world immersion techniques and mechanics I think is great, and I love the spider ball. I love the spider ball. The magnet track stuff, that's great. I think it's so cool.
It's very video gamey as well, which is what I like about it. Like it doesn't feel like anything else, and it's very unique compared to all other games out there. And so yes, I think like when you first said that about Miyamoto, like, oh, they'll make the game if you get in the morph ball, I'm like, oh, that's kind of stupid. And then like the more I think about it, I'm like, no, that's actually like, it's kind of like Metroid's calling card in some sort of way, or it's at least the most distinct thing about this series on a gameplay level, I would say.
Why can't Metroid crawl?
Why can't Metroid crawl?
The morph ball is so vital, and I love the implementation here and what we'll see going forward with it. So it's great. The other, I think, it's not really in the 2D games, but I think it's vital for Prime, and it's one of my favorite things is the visor itself. And not only as a HUD and a world immersion thing, but I love switching between the visors. I love the scan visor. I like the X-ray and thermal visors could have better just visuals.
I was going to say,
they're a little harsh on the eyes.
Yes. Thermal's very harsh on the eyes. The one area of, Phendrana Drifts? Where you're like in the lab?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
That
hurts my eyeballs.
I went through that area about 3 times, I think, because I was going back to get some other things. And one time when I talked before about like hating backtracking certain things, there was at one point where I ran through the lab again, ran through it because I missed something there, got out, and I was like, okay, I don't think I have to go back there again. And then I found out there was an artifact, and I was like, are you kidding me? And I had to go back in there again, and I was like, oh, I don't want to come to this area of the map ever again. Yeah, the thermal visuals are not great on the eyes. I think
it's cool at first, and then you're like, oh, they hurt.
Yeah, so I kind of differ with you. I think the visors are not that great because I don't like the thermal one, and I feel like there's really only one distinct area of the game where they use it. Obviously, when you get to the end, there's some boss fights that implement it. The X-ray one, same thing. I feel like there's just a couple, 2 or 3 little areas where it's like, oh yeah, there's some platforms here you just didn't know about. Here you go, and I don't even feel like it makes much sense, to be honest.
They make the
like
Chozo ghosts much easier because you can track them the whole
they do,
time.
they do.
That's a godsend there. I think they're sci-fi cool in that way.
Yeah.
It was like, X-ray vision. And the cool thing, I mean, really, I
What
want to
is
use
the other one? What is the third one we're not talking about?
Scan visor.
Scan visor, X-ray thermal, and then what's the
normal one? There's not
duh.
Yeah, your regular visor.
No.
So the other thing, though, for me is it reminds me what Dead Space would go on to do and other just kind of great games where the HUD is in the world. It's just you're living in this world, and the visors is so vital to that. Not only are you looking through, you are in Samus's eyes. The visor fogs up, or water hits it, or you can see the steam coming off of the arm cannon.
You can see her own reflection.
Yes, sometimes when her eyes come through.
More than her eyes, you could see if you get big enough explosions going off in front of her face or something like that. You can see the whole reflection of her face in the visor, which is cool.
You can see the bones in her hand in the cannon if you're using the X-ray. I think everything in there is just, it all lends itself to building the world. The thermal visor, depending on what wave beam you have equipped, the color changes and reflects off of that. So if you got the ice one, it's in there and it's cold. And I really think the visors were vital to this transition from 2D to 3D. And I think they're a huge part of why this game is so revered, is what they bring to the table in regards of immersion and feeling like you're in this world and in this game.
Yeah, I think the visors are a good aspect of it. I will say, whenever I found a new visor, I was like, oh, I don't want a new visor right now. Like, it was the one upgrade that I was always like not super thrilled to get.
Sure.
But they're good. They're good. They're a good element of this game. I don't think it's maybe as vital as you're saying it is. I like the scanning the most, though. I was definitely a
scanning
junkie.
Scanning is so cool and a really neat way to do world building.
It's kind of like a Pokédex type thing.
Yeah, they're tricking you into reading a bunch of dialogue boxes, but you feel like you're exploring and learning about this world and the lore and the backstory and stuff. It's so neat. Apparently it's huge in Japan, like as far as being received well, but then Americans apparently don't necessarily care for scanning and reading everything.
One thing I wanted to say is that the HUD is very invasive at first. It took me a couple hours to get sort of used to it because you are more cramped in that sense. Like, because the screen is taken up by the edges of her visor, like you don't have the full frame of, you are seeing through a condensed perspective. And that was a little bit, there was a hump that I had to get over with that. And I think more than anything, it was just continuing to play the game. And I obviously got used to it over time. But the early hours of the game, I did feel kind of like cramped. And I was like, it was like I was trying to blow up the field of view a little bit. I was like, listen, I want to see more of my surroundings here. And I can't. But I think purely for like an aesthetic and like a, making you feel like you're Samus. I do think it is that much more engaging and kind of engrossing. One thing I wanted to mention, so we've kind of naturally touched on all of the, the different abilities and upgrades you get over the course of the game and stuff like that. And this is something I talked to you about before we started doing this episode. But the way in which Samus loses her powers at the start of the game has to be one of the worst conceived ideas for like knocking you back to ground zero to then have to go get all the abilities all over again. Because you've got it here in the notes and about how this game takes place after Zero Mission and Metroid, the original Metroid. So she is like a souped up bounty hunter at the start of this game, which is clearly seen in the first 10 to 15 minutes. But then for her to just get knocked against a wall and lose everything is so goofy.
It is apparently, at least on the Wikipedia page, it says an explosion damages Samus's suit. So the explosion is what does it, but it is very dumb.
You
It's
should
like
have just had her get a. I feel like it would have been a better idea to just have her get like smacked around by Ridley or something. Like, just if you're gonna have her take damage and lose all her powers, have it be against the main antagonist boss of the game rather than just, oh no, an explosion and I hit the back of this wall and now I've lost everything.
yeah,
It's
it's very dumb, and I don't remember how they essentially do this reset in Echoes or Corruption either, uh, or even
she just
Hunters.
keeps keeps running into walls at the start of every game. Oh, this dang wall! You lose all my powers again.
So I am curious to see how they handle that going forward, because that is one of the, I think, trickiest parts of a Metroidvania is how do you introduce the player as powerful, but then tease them with getting more powerful. And, the great examples would be things like Super Metroid, where you're just naturally building and progressing in that world, or Symphony of the Night, where death shows up and takes your stuff. That's cool. So it's going to be interesting to see and study that going forward.
Max, I want to talk about the story, but I want to do it. I don't know if I played this game the right way, and that's to say, I read nothing that I scanned.
You're scanning everything, but reading nothing. You did it wrong.
I would read the enemies that I would scan.
That helps
the
you.
enemies and the items. I would read those because I thought those were interesting. But anytime it was like the Chozo, blah blah blah, I'm like, nope, don't care. Just checking out now. You scanned a pirate log, and I'll say this too. One, I don't feel like this game does a great job of encouraging you to read those things, because I feel like the moment you scan something, it should pop up and say, you just scanned this. Would you like to read it? Instead, what it does is it makes you go into the menu, figure out what you just scanned, and then read the log.
Oh, I mean, you can do it that way. I just read it right there in the scan visor.
You can do that?
Yeah, you just hit A and you're just reading it.
Oh, I guess the second it completed the scan,
you probably just let go.
Button.
If you just hold it,
then that's probably
right
just
there.
what I did accidentally.
Yeah,
oh, well.
You read it in the world, because it is not cool that you would have to go dig into the menu and find it, because then it's like, well, where was I? What log was this?
I guess I just thought the second you scan something that it was like, the scan is done. It's in your database. And then it's like, okay, well,
no, you can read it right there in the world.
Okay. Once again, I'm stupid. At least I know that for the future, though, I guess, moving forward with these games.
The scan visor, I love reading lore. I love picking things up and reading and exploring and learning more about the world. I think some of the pirate data is very great because it's all written from the space pirate perspective, and they're like, some of them are offering like extra bounty reward if you can kill the hunter. She's like this mythical creature to them, of almost in a weird way like Chief is to the
to the grunts,
the Spartans.
Covenant.
Covenant, thank you. The same way of like, she is a threat and needs to be taken care of. Or when they figure out, so those space pirates that show up and have her beam type, the explanation for that is they've reversed engineered it, but their critical flaw is they're weak to that type of beam as well. So that's how the game teaches you by, or all these Omega pirates and all the experimentation they're doing. They're like, well, this is really great and they're super powerful, but also this is a critical weakness. And so you're learning that. Or the Chozo lore things where you're learning about the Chozo came to Tallon IV and this meteor crashed and this dark matter essentially was like coming out of the planet and killing everything. And so the Chozo basically were trying to contain everything and stop this corruption, not to use the subtitle of the third game, but from spreading throughout the galaxy. And the space pirates are coming in to mutate and build up their power and rule the galaxy. So it's this cool just learning about these different cultures and things without the game just talking to, because it is optional. You can scan it, read it, or move on. And while the environments do tell a story, I think it's more of the current occupation story of the space pirates. So you can see the infrastructure they're building, the labs, the mutations, the mining, all of that's kind of current. The Chozo runes don't necessarily tell like why are the Chozo not here? But there's all these lore reasons. The ghosts are there as trials for this prophesized hero. The Chozo essentially were enlightened to a degree, and they could see into the future. They were getting visions and stuff, and so it's all super fascinating. This mixture of religion and science fiction, and it's one of those types of cool marriages. So yeah, you did do this one, Ron.
Well, here's what I'll say, and this is kind of the spin I can put on this from a story perspective. I think the game does a good enough job solely from a visual component that everything you've said I've kind of broadly understood.
Mhm.
Like just the different areas that you are going through. Like, okay, now I'm in a space pirate lab, and clearly they're doing research here, and this is where I'm starting to see the Metroids and stuff like that. So, okay, clearly the space pirates have been doing research on the Metroids, and there's a lot of this type of stuff going on here. And the Chozo, and they're spread all throughout the game, and they have a large impact on this world. Like, purely from a visual and gameplay perspective, like, I understood the broad beats of what was happening. Now, did I ever understand every piece of background history and lore that was dropped? No, because I was stupid and I didn't read the logs like I apparently could have and should have right there in the moment. But I think that this game's, like, and you can probably speak to this, is that it really does go hand in hand. It's kind of like, to draw this comparison up, it's kind of like Dark Souls. Like, I feel like there's a lot of narrative and universe, and like a lot of imagery and stuff within the Dark Souls games where you can kind of piece together what has happened in certain parts of that world, without having to, dig deep into the item descriptions and get the background and the lore of all these things that have been going on. It is a very gameplay first experience, that they then do fill in the gaps for you if you want it. And for me, I'll say this, like, I don't feel like my experience was lesser or like I robbed myself of anything because I didn't dig super deeply into the various logs and the various things that I was scanning. And I'm not, should say this, I didn't like not read none of them whatsoever, but because of, I guess, the dumb way that I was unlocking them, I didn't know which one was which, and it's like, what did I just get? So
Yeah, that is a bit cumbersome.
I do like that they put gameplay first, though, above everything else, and that's very intrinsically Nintendo. And in a lot of ways, this is how, like, I think a lot of their games are. Like, Mario's kind of the same way, and Zelda, maybe not as much Zelda, honestly.
I think so. Like, look at Breath of the Wild. Get off the Great Plateau and just go.
Yeah,
and
you're
sure the
immediate.
story is like there, but you can just do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, they do a good job of putting gameplay first before everything else, which can't be said for a lot of other games out there, especially games like that. Is like the thing that makes me not want to play so many other games. That's a completely different tangent, but got to be engaging up front. You got to find a way to sink your teeth into the player quickly.
Mhm.
And I think this game does a great job with that for sure. But that being said, I will definitely read more of the entries moving forward in these games. So
I can't speak to Federation Force, but the rest of the games do have lore and things to scan.
Well, that's why I said up front at the start of this episode that, like, you're kind of the quote unquote expert here, and like you're the more experienced player, and so you can kind of show me where I've gone wrong here from the earliest.
Well, at least, yeah,
episode,
we've corrected this for future games. You'll be able to explore, I think, the rest of the mainline stuff a lot more.
I want to talk. There's a couple other. I don't know where to go next because there's some other like larger beats or larger things with this game that I want to touch on. The music and stuff like that is a big thing. But I did want to run through here and talk about some of my own little notes that I made, if that's okay with you, and maybe we can,
by all means,
talk about some of these things as well. I think one area we talked about the map before, and I think the map largely is very good in this game. I do have quite a few issues with it, though. At the same time, I think it does a good job of laying out the environments in pretty great depth and showing you like the verticality to all of them specifically. But I wish the game told you the percentage complete that you were in each of the 5 areas of the game. because it only tells you your broad percentage. Like, you have this much percent. It's like, cool, but like, what have I cleared out the most here? And I think if it told me that, then I would have been a little bit more encouraged to explore the world. And not only and then outside of the beam doors, I don't feel like the game really does a great job of telling you when you've come across certain things that you then need to come back to later. Because I could always remember, like you mentioned before, that like they really bait you with the grapple beam for a good 8 to 10 hours. And then you finally get it and you're like, finally, I have the grapple beam. And then the second I got it, I was like, my mind goes blank. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've seen like 8 of these. Where are they at? Like then I was like,
go?
Yeah, then it was a process of me trying to like scrape back through my brain and remember where I had seen all of these things. And I'm like combing over the map. I'm like, I think there was one here. So I feel like the map could have still been more detailed. We kind of talked about this with one of the early Resident Evil games as well. Like there's not, and the Resident Evil games got better in that regard over time. Like, okay, you've got this key, cool, this key goes here. And you've come across this, if you've come across a door that has a spade on it, and then you get the spade key, you're going to know where you need to go rather than just needing to randomly check all the doors because you can't remember which one that goes to. That's kind of how I feel here as well. I feel like the map could be labeled better with the things you are getting, because it is so, and I know a lot of other Metroid games don't do that, but it is so strict. It's so strictly like you need these things to move on in the game, rather than like something like Zelda, where I feel like it's just like, oh, if you remember that you came across this, you can come back here and you get a piece of heart or something like that. With this, it's like, no, you were hard stopping you from advancing until you get these items, and then you can't remember where they're at sometimes. So
yeah, I totally agree. So the big difference I think here is between a 2D Metroid and a 3D Metroid is, like, in the 2D games, you know how much of the room you have explored because it's visually represented as in filled in and not filled in, like a colored in space. And this is, as soon as you enter a room, it's all orange. And I don't think you could do that kind of coloring it in 3D, at least very easily on the GameCube. Today, that might be something more doable. So how do you, the problem becomes, how do you represent percentage and completion in a room visually? And I don't know the answer to that. I do wish.
Well, more often than not, I was just going to say, if you found a map and then like you saw connecting areas to a certain room, it's like, okay, well, I clearly haven't been this direction, so I'm going to push into these.
But as soon as you enter those rooms, and then if you've got to backtrack
they're
later,
totally filled up.
Yeah. I do think like having individual world percentages would have been great in the remaster. Something to add a quality of life improvement. That would have actually been really great. That would have been nice. I will say I think this is one of the great 3D maps of all time. At the very least, one of the most memorable. The design of it is so visually striking and I think cool and engaging. I'm a huge sucker for maps. As a kid, my room was map themed. Like, I had maps on the wall. I had a map rug, like of the globe. I had a world atlas.
Was this your favorite character from Dora the Explorer as well?
Yeah, I love the map. I'm a map. So I love maps, and this is one of my all-time favorites in general of the game world. So I love hitting the button, pulling it up, and zooming and whipping and flipping around. My big thing, though, and I've always had this issue with this game, is the connection between the worlds in the map.
Yes,
it is.
I'm glad I was glad you.
Yeah. This is my big thing with it, because I think you should be able to drill into it. Like, if you're at this elevator, like, you should just be able to push the A button, and it take you to where it is in the next world. Because
agree.
It's like the Fendrana North elevator takes you to Tallon South, and it's like, well. And then you've got to look at the compass to see where you are.
Yep.
And so is this the north elevator or the south? That is my big inside the individual environments, map's great. Connecting between them, very tricky. And I'm not a fan of that at all.
You stole, that was literally the exact next thing I was going to say. Totally feel the exact same way. Because that drove, eventually those things, like you said, kind of like lose their meaning, like Magmore North. And it's like, dude, like, okay, but where is this taking me?
But where is north? This map is a 3D representation of space. There is a compass. but that's dependent on your orientation. It's really difficult to.
And then sometimes I would get on and it would
connect it.
spit me out in like a part of the area that I'm going to that I'm like, oh, I don't want to go here because then, and then it's like I'm backtracking even more. It's yes, there are annoyances like that, and I do, like I said previously, it's so much easier, I think, to. I mean, this is really that I can think of. Is this the first game that has ever like tried a Metroidvania style in this sort of 3D environment? I mean, obviously, Zelda games
I can't speak to it being
kind
the
of
first.
adjacent. These,
It's certainly one of, if not the first, most
2002.
successful.
Yeah, I mean, I still can't think of many other games that
We'll find out if Castlevania 64 is anything like that.
maybe. I guess we'll see 8 months from now, whenever we play that game or whatever. So I think there's just, I guess what I'm saying in that regard, though, is like there are growing pains to it. And I'm curious to see if these things get alleviated over time as we do go to play Hunters and 2 and 3.
Hunters, I know that's not a huge issue because each is a different planet, basically. So you're isolated that way.
Was the other thing, too. And maybe this is kind of a tangent, but I've played Corruption, obviously, and I know there's different planets in that game. And so I was like 4 hours into this game, and I'm like, when am I leaving? Like, when am I going to fly to somewhere else? Like, it took me a bit until I was like, oh, wait, the whole game is just here. Never mind. So that's a weird little thing I was struggling with as somebody who had played Corruption previously. I mentioned this previously, and I wanted to just come back and touch on it because I said I would, and this is just a small thing. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it. The way the game doles out some of the power-ups and the health and stuff like that once you kill enemies was really annoying me because there were a couple instances where I needed specific pickups. There was one part where I specifically needed power bombs to get through to the next area, and I had run out of them, and enemies or boxes or whatever will just drop them. But for some reason, and I looked this up and people were talking about it online, there's something in the game that prioritizes like health first, then missiles, then power bombs. And so I basically had to keep killing enemies until I maxed out my health, maxed out my missiles, and then it would start more frequently dropping power bombs. And that's not to say it never drops them, but it's a lower percentage drop rate compared to the other things because it's like, oh, well, you don't have full health. You probably need health. We're going to keep dropping that for you. And so that started to bother me because I straight up like needed the power bombs to advance in the game. Whereas, you know, missiles, it's like I got 110 of them and it's still like, here, how about some missiles? It's like, no, I don't need any more of these right now. So that was not like a huge issue throughout the overall game, but it was like a 20 to 30 minute stretch there where I was getting very frustrated with it because it was not giving me what I needed when I needed it. And there was no easy way to fill that back up. Like you're like, oh, just go to a save point. I'm like, it's not going to fill up my power bombs. Like yes, I have to get a drop.
That. Yeah.
So that was very annoying. I don't know if you had that same problem, but that was just something I wanted to mention here briefly.
Did not. I always was just getting what I needed.
Lastly, there's just some Metroid-isms in this game that I feel like are unique to Metroid that I have never seen in other Metroidvania games or games of this type. Like one of the Chozo artifacts I think is tucked away in a room that you have to blow up with a missile or something like that. You have to blow away a wall and you get in there. But the wall, there's no indicators of like what the wall is. It's in Phendrana Drifts, I think, or it's in the...
You have to X-ray it, don't you?
No, it doesn't show up X-rayed. It doesn't show up thermal because I checked this before I blew it up.
It's the one at the top, right?
Mm-hmm. And there's in the waterfall area, there is nothing indicative.
The only thing indicative of it would have been the clue.
And the clue, but that room is huge. And it's like, how
it says something like at the top or something.
Yeah, but there's a couple different areas where like, but then this comes back to what I was saying before. It's like, you have a finite number of power bombs if you start dropping them in the wrong areas, and then you got to go run around and kill enemies and get them to drop more power bomb ammo if you don't have any. That drove me crazy. Like I get that's just one little thing, but other Metroid games have done that. Like there's no indicator in some of these games of what you need to do and what you need to blow up. And that was, I mentioned before that I had played Samus Returns. That was one good thing about that game, is that it always told you like what in the environment you could blow up or what you could interact with. And for the most part, I feel like this game was pretty good about that. Like if you would see a certain structure that was made of bavarium or something weird like that. I can't remember the exact name. Like that was always the thing you could blow up with the power bombs. But I don't know. I thought there was just a couple little odd moments like that in the game where I'm like, dude, if I didn't have a guide off to the side that I could consult, like to give me a hand every now and then, that would have been way more aggravating to me. So did you have any issues like that? I know you've obviously played this game before, but you also didn't use a guide. I don't know if you had any.
No, I found that when I was looking for something, I either went and explored it and tried to figure it out. And if it wasn't power, like ability restricted, I could figure it out. Or I just read the clues like in the game. So I do think the game does a good enough job of, at least as a near 30-year-old adult, of figuring out where to go. Now, as a kid, I'm almost positive I used a guide. Certainly. And the game doesn't even tell you that you need all of the artifacts to beat the game until you're at the end of the game. And then it's like, oh, make sure you get all these so you can go down here. So there are some things in the world that don't just outright tell you what to do. So it's hard for me to gauge that because I had played it before and I'm certainly more competent than I was 20 years ago. But I didn't have any real problems with figuring out or running out of power-ups or figuring out where certain abilities or things were. So I just kind of coasted on through. I only died once. I only got one game over.
I died a couple times.
In the phase on mines, right before you get to the first save room.
I maybe died like once or twice. Oh, right before you get to... That's brutal.
That was brutal. Trek. That was really... I had to do the mines all over again. It was not
That's
fun.
a long trek down there.
Yeah, that was not a good time. Because that enemy is invisible and you can't lock onto it and you don't have the X-ray visor by that point. So it was not fun.
The last thing I wanted to ask you just comes with collectibles. And I know for a fact I've talked about this on our old podcast, Millennial Gaming Speak, maybe in regards to Super Metroid, but I still feel the same way here. How do you feel when it comes to getting all the collectibles? Because when I play a lot of Metroidvania games, I find myself wanting to get 100% completion, get everything in the world, get every scrap, explore every nook and cranny, and I never feel like that with Metroid games. And the reason is just because I think the rewards they are giving you are not
missiles and
great.
Health.
It's just health is great. Health, I went out of my way to get max health in the game, but then when I checked after that, because I knew I was about to go fight Ridley in the game, I was like, okay, well, let me see here, what do I still need? And I was like, need another energy cell or two. I'm gonna go out of my way to go get those. And then I was still at like 75% done, and I was like, dude, I do not care enough. Like at some point, like I have 150 missiles. I don't need 200. Like, it just keeps ratcheting up, and I don't feel like that's enticing at all. And I feel like these games could be more enticing to kind of push for it. There needs to be a balance, though. Obviously, you don't want to have it to where you feel like you are encouraged to get 100% completion or something like that. It really is just kind of an extra bonus if you do go out of your way to find everything. But yeah, like missiles and bombs, like after a while, it's like, okay, I think I'm kind of topped off here, and I don't need to go spend 2 or 3 hours just to increase my missile reserves that much more,
Yeah, the problem is they feel fine and are rewarding during the game when you're still getting all the other power-ups because it's
like in the moment. Yes.
But then when you have everything as far as key crucial abilities, then it is just missiles and health, and you're like, well, I have 100 missiles, I'm okay. And so I do feel the same way. And same thing with power bombs. I think I only found a couple of them. One thing I like that this game does do is those missile perks for the different beams, which are not required to beat the game. They
those are
in
cool.
different spots. So those were cool to stumble across and felt like good rewards. I just don't know. The counterpoint is, or the counter example is Castlevania, where there's just so many different types of weapons you can wield, swords, shields, armor. Like the diversity of what you can get to complete the game 100% is more prevalent there. And I'm just
And this
not
is
sure.
not that type of game, and I'm
Yeah.
fine with that generally. But I think at the same time, like, when I got to the end of this game, I was shocked by how many more collectibles that I left out in the world, and I didn't really feel like I was missing anything. Like, that's where the disparity is for me.
Yeah. I think the other part is the scan stuff. Like, scan data counts toward completion percentage in this game, and that is, I think that's a fun thing to do. But I'm also not going to go out of my way at the end of the game to like go fill up the encyclopedia essentially. So it is kind of you gotta want the 100%, and that's kind of the only incentive to pursue getting all your missiles and stuff.
Area percentages would have been
that. They
could have really tempted me maybe in that way. Because then if I'm like,
because if you're like, I'm at 90%.
Yeah, it's like, oh, in Finjana Drifts, I've got 95% of everything. Well, what if I just made it 100? Like, then it's like they're kind of like...
Number go up. Number feel good.
They're kind of encouraging me in that way. But when it's like the whole world is laid out before me, it's like, you got 74%. It's like, dude, I don't care. You're not going to help me with this last 26% by like telling me where I need to kind of look, so I'm not even going to bother. All right, Max, last thing I wanted to touch on here, the music. And just... I want to say this. I want to combine this because typically we just do music on its own, but I want to talk about music and just general aesthetic because I don't feel like we've talked about that too much. And they obviously go very hand in hand in this game. And I mean, to just put where I'm coming from here, I wrote down in my notes, this is maybe the best video game soundtrack ever.
Yes.
And like I have known this for, I'll say this, like this is the one thing about Metroid that I have known coming into the season is that I one of my other early things I wrote down here, vibes are immaculate. So I wrote vibes are immaculate, best soundtrack ever. So I've always known that these games have fantastic soundtracks. I've listened to them. I've enjoyed them. But experiencing the music while playing was a totally different thing, and I have such a larger appreciation for this game's score and its music. And not only that, but like I mentioned, like how they combine that like with the areas that you are in. Like when I heard the underwater music for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh. I know this song. I've heard this song before, but in the context of an underwater area, it's 10 times better now. It's like this. So it's great. The music, I mean, hats off to, what are the composers again? Kenji Yamamoto and Kouichi Kyuma. Dude, killer. I mean, honestly, for my best part of the game, by far, is the music. If they put out a vinyl of this game tomorrow, I'm buying it. So
yeah. So Kenji is the Metroid composer, basically, from Super Metroid, Fusion, Prime, 2, 0, Pinball, Corruption. Did he do Federation Force?
They didn't bring him back for the most important one.
They did not bring him back for Federation Force. So, I mean, the music...
That just makes me think Federation Force's music is like... Probably.
So this soundtrack is, top tier status. It is immaculate. Of course, Phendrana, right? One of, if not the best snow level music of all time. It is...
I think that was one of the other things I messaged you a picture. Kanye. I just put a picture of Kanye at the pictured at the front of a board in a recording studio, and I said, "Picture of every game composer who's ever made an ice song."
Yeah,
because like ice songs are really always top tier, but like in this game, it's on a whole other level. I think.
I feel like every track in this game it stands out, is good, and you know immediately where you are. Like Magmoor Caverns, the thrum of the tribal drum, like dun dun dun. Then Tallon Overworld, when you come in and come back, are both just captivating.
And it's a riff. That's a riff on the original Metroid music, right? Okay.
Yep. It is just so perfect.
I have
love
all
every
these
sound.
songs still in my head now,
Yep.
and we have not played this game. I have not played this game, and I guess I beat it a week ago. So I have not touched it in 7 days, and I still,
Yeah.
like, as we were talking about all these things, like, they're popping into my head.
There are some songs that are a bit much. I think of the Chozo Ghosts. That song,
Yes, I agree
because
with
those
that.
encounters are so frequent. Also, same with Space Pirates. Like, those encounters are so frequent that they're just, those songs grate on you a bit over time. So I don't care about that. But I love also how they use sound design to really sell the world as well. One of my favorite little touches is the Geiger counter sound when you
with
get near phase on
radiation?
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is it's just such a small auditory attention to detail that really sells it. It is one of the only games on Switch that supports, I think, full 5.1 surround sound, or maybe 7, but it supports full surround sound. And on GameCube, it supported Dolby Pro Logic 2 at the time, which was a fairly significant deal on the GameCube. So sound has always been essential to this particular game, and it is, again, it adds to the immersion of the world. It just, when those keys come in Findrana, you're like, I'm home. It's so good. I love this soundtrack.
I think the thing that I like the most about the soundtrack is that it feels diegetic. Like, do you know what like, it feels like it is intrinsically part of the world. And I think what's most impressive about that is, like, the instrumentation and the sounds that are used on these tracks. Like, outside of the piano, everything else sounds so ethereal and atmospheric, and it's just kind of incoherent in some sort. Maybe not incoherent, but it doesn't feel like music. It doesn't feel like instrumentation, at least. But then they sprinkle that in with the piano and stuff like that. It's like, dude, oh my gosh, it's so good. And I think this is one of the best aspects of the Metroid series, is that just the character designs and the world designs are so striking. It is Nintendo's sci-fi series. Like, this is if Nintendo
sci-fi series.
Well, if I was gonna say, if Zelda is, their high fantasy series, this is like their sci-fi stuff. I know they've got some other stuff sprinkled in there, but, like, this is their flagship science fiction title, and the music really does a lot with that, and just all the enemy designs I think are cool too. Samus's design is great. I don't know how much time you spent, like, combing through the concept art and stuff like that. Maybe after you beat
I did
the game,
after the game.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I just think the entire look of these games, it's funny because I've never played these games, and we've always talked about my hate for Metroid, and I have a lot more problems with some of these games than I do think other people do, but I have always respected these games a lot, and I think that there's a lot of really cool stuff in this world, just from a visual component. The visuals and the gameplay, I think, are just top tier in these games. So specifically, I guess in this game, we'll see if it holds through the rest of the season. But
Remastered in particular looks really great as well. I think on
it does.
It's a testament to visual design and holding up, because this was just a 480p GameCube game at the time.
Well, also, I mean, we can talk about this here, but, like, shout out to Retro for that remaster. That remaster is really good. Like, that's one of the better remasters that has come out in a hot minute. And it's so clear that, and I think they've maybe said this, but it's so apparent that they're like, okay, well, we're going to make Metroid Prime 4 now. How the heck do we do that? Let's go back to the start and, like, work on this game again.
Yeah.
And you can tell this was like
people weren't. These aren't the original.
Yeah, because they've not had the same team, obviously, from 21 years ago. So this is kind of the new age of Retro's way of getting their feet wet with this series and really understanding this world, and they did a really good job on the remaster, I believe. So
yeah, it's pretty great. It also is apparently it's sold over 1 million copies is the remaster alone, so that's pretty good for Metroid. 250,000 were, is this right? Yeah, 250,000 units were sold in its first week, and it sold 1.5 million in the US alone. So it's definitely one of the most successful Metroid games of all time, which isn't a lauded list, but
I was gonna say this is actually like
Prime is vital to saving Metroid.
this is actually like their worst performing franchise, but
yeah, but it's one of the best games.
Max, what is this game's legacy?
It's a lot of things. It is the great 2D to 3D transition for Metroid. It's the Ocarina of Time equivalent, or the Super Mario 64 equivalent for Metroid, right? Of bringing it up. It's a game that still holds up. It's a Hall of Famer, right? The atmosphere, the world, the lore, it all lends itself to this game that feels alive. Even today, it's annoying. There's parts of it that are annoying, from enemies to intermap connections or percentage things that we've talked about. But all of that kind of gets, the rough edges are smoothed out by the overall package, I think, and it's really one of the truly great games, and it put a lot of pressure on the rest of the games afterward, and they're not as good. That's not to say they're bad, but it's just they really knocked it out of the park, and it took a lot of work. This game suffered unbelievable crunch. It took them a ton of time to make one level that was approved by Nintendo, and then they had to finish the rest of the game in like 8 months. It was like 80-hour work weeks. I mean, truly horrendous stuff. But through the fires, one of the greatest games in Nintendo's catalog was made, and I'm not justifying the crunch or anything like that, but it is a game that was forged in fire, and it holds.
Yeah, I think this game's legacy is really, I mean, kind of like we said it at the top. It's one of the top reviewed Nintendo games ever, which I think falls through the cracks because this is the same company, that puts out Mario and Zelda, and I feel like that's what gets all the attention for Nintendo. But when people talk about the greatest Nintendo games of all time, this is up there in many people's minds. Maybe not my own. I like it, but I don't know if I would put it up there. But I mean, this is definitely on a short list of the best games that they've ever put out. And not only that, but like there was some risk here, I feel like, because they upended their formula, or maybe not upended it, but they took their formula that they knew worked in a 2D manner, and they took it to 3D to see how it would do there, and it was greatly successful. And this spawned all the games we're going to play this season. Like everything we're playing this season comes from this. And obviously there's something to be said about finding success with that 2D to 3D jump, because you think back to the late 90s, like when the N64 and PS1 were coming out, and obviously a lot of the game publishers back then were, we're going to make our first Mario game in 3D, and we're going to make a Zelda game in 3D now. But there's something to be said with how this game is so different, but it is so similar to the Metroid games that have come before it. And I think that's what's impressive, is like there's a hard line between, like 2D Mario and 3D Mario, or 2D Zelda and 3D Zelda. Like they're similar, but there are some stark differences. This to me feels very, very similar to the 2D Metroid games I've played, which is impressive because it is so different at the same time.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of rambling. This game's legacy is that it's just probably one of the most acclaimed games ever. And
it still holds
a game. I was going to say is a game so popular amongst hardcore fans that they're now eagerly awaiting Metroid Prime 4, wherever the heck that is. So
that's a story for a different episode.
I feel like we're going to play that game this year. By this year, I mean 2024.
24.
So
I hope so.
I feel like it'll be part of this season when all's said and done, but we'll see.
I hope so. But I think that does it for Metroid Prime 1, Metroid Prime. So thank you all for listening and joining with us. If you'd like, you can check out the rest of the show over at chapterselect.com. Check out all our other seasons, ranging from Banjo and Kazooie and Pokemon, Fast and Furious, all that good stuff. So you can check all of that out. If you'd like to check out Logan's work, you can do so over at comicbook.com, where he's a staff writer, writes the reviews over there. Maybe he'll review Metroid Prime 4. Maybe he can fight his way into that. I don't know about that.
I don't want to do
He's
that.
So you can check out his work over there, and then you can find my writing over at maxfrequency.net and my other podcast, the Max Frequency Podcast. You can check that out as well. But thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, adios.